Hello and welcome everybody to the May 2025 Harbor Commission regular meeting. I'm Chair Adam Stanowik and calling to order this meeting at 6:33 p.m. Let's start off with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen is absent. Commissioner Ford?
Here.
Commissioner McCrae?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Stedman?
Here.
Chair Stanwyck?
Here. Great, thank you. Director Wiltshire, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Chair Stanwyck, none. We're good to go.
Great, thank you. Mr. Lopez, do we have any general public comment this evening?
Chair Stanwyck, there are no hands raised and no speaker slips submitted.
Great, thank you. Additionally, we had no written public comments submitted as well. Just kind of want to make note of that. We'll move on now to the work group reports. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I have a quick report for strategic planning. We met on Wednesday, May 7th, to consider a 5-month plan for our work, given the upcoming disbandment of the work group in the fall. And during that meeting, we actually received an email from Director Wiltshire notifying us that he was working with the consultant, Raftelis, to provide a proposal for strategic planning for a one-day workshop. We agreed that this had a lot of potential, as does the Commission's agreement with among all of us to assess the perspectives of entities in the public, possibly through surveys and/or stakeholder meetings. So we're really looking forward to the Commissioner's thoughts tonight about item number 6, and we are meeting tomorrow afternoon to discuss next steps. That's it. Anything from my fellows?
Not from this fellow.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Stedman, did you have another report?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Great, thank you guys. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the consent calendar?
Yes, we have item 1, approval of the minutes. Recommendation that Harbor Commission waive further reading and approve the minutes from the regular meeting of April 17th, 2025 and the special meeting of April 23rd, 2025. Item 2, fiscal year 2026 and 2027 waterfront budget recommendation excluding slip-related fees. Recommendation that Harbor Commission review the waterfront department's proposed fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 budget excluding slip-related fees and recommend to City Council for approval and incorporation into the city budget process. And item 3, fiscal year 2026 and 2027 waterfront budget recommendation for slip-related fees. Recommendation that Harbor Commission review the waterfront department's proposed fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 budget, including slip-related fees, and recommend to City Council for approval and incorporation into the city budget process.
Great, thank you, Mr. Lopez. Do we have any questions from the Commission regarding anything on the consent calendar? Okay. Any public comment, Mr. Lopez, on that item?
There are no speaker slips submitted and no hands raised, Chair Stanwyck.
Great, thank you. So with this item, what we're going to do is we are going to split items number 1 and 2, and then take a vote on that, and then do item number 3. So with that, if there are no questions or discussion, we'll entertain a motion for items number 1 and 2 of the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote on items number 1 and 2 of the consent calendar?
This is a motion by Commissioner McCrae, seconded by Commissioner Stedman to approve items 1 and 2 of the consent calendar. Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen is absent. Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
Commissioner McCrae?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stedman?
Aye.
Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. And the reason we split the item was number 3, I'll be abstaining from as a slip holder. And with that, we'll entertain a motion for item number 3 of the consent calendar.
I'd like to move to approve item number 3 on the budget recommendation, including slip-related fees.
We have a motion and a second for item number 3 of the consent calendar. Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote for us?
So this is a motion by Vice Chair Ford, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve item 3 of the consent calendar. Commissioner Cohen is absent. Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
Commissioner McCrae?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson? Commissioner Stedman?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson? Yes. Chair Stanwyck.
Abstain.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioners Cohen absent and Chair Stanwyck abstaining.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. New business, item number 4, renewal of Santa Barbara Sailing Club lease agreement. The recommendation is that the Harbor Commission recommends staff negotiate a 3-year lease agreement with the Santa Barbara Sailing Club for 8,677 square feet of dry boat storage area in the Santa Barbara Harbor. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Barrios. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Stanaway, Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Cesar Barrios. I am the Waterfront Business Manager. And today, I bring to you a request to renew a lease agreement with the Santa Barbara Sailing Club. For a little bit of background, so the Santa Barbara Sailing Club has maintained dry boat storage space in the Santa Barbara Harbor for many years. The club itself was established back in 1959 as the Santa Barbara Sailing Association, and then in 1969 was incorporated and officially changed their name to the Santa Barbara Sailing Club as you know it today. The 8,677 square feet of leased storage space can accommodate approximately 20 sailboats. They vary between 10 to 27 feet in length. So here you have the current lease terms as perspective of what we're going to be negotiating, which are set. So this lease is set to expire on September 30th of 2025. The base rent is currently about $2,200, and the rent increases each year by 3%, in accordance with the Consumer Price Index, whichever is greater. As previously mentioned, the site is just over 8,600 square feet, and there's a requirement for general liability insurance of $2 million. So here's the site, which is located at 118 Harbor Way. If you're familiar with this, and those who may be watching online, it's located right at the intersection of Harbor Way, basically right adjacent to the multi-purpose bike path, and next to the Harbor Marine Works yard, and across almost right across the Coast Guard building. In the area that we're discussing is this section right here that's encircled in red. So historically, the department has granted the Santa Barbara Sailing Club 5-year agreements. However, due to potential changes due to the lease space concerning the ongoing sea level rise adaptation plan study that's currently in process, a shorter lease term is being proposed and would allow for flexibility and reassessment upon receipt of the study's findings, ensuring that the future uses align with the proposed environmental and strategic plans to address sea level rise. The study will be completed within the next 2 to 3 years, and will provide an assessment of not only this lease space that I showed you in the map, but the entire coastal zone along the waterfront, which includes in our area the Harbor West lot and the Ledbetter parking lot, which has experienced significant flooding in the last few years due to high swells and storms. So with that, today's recommendation is that the Harbor Commission recommends staff to negotiate a 3-year lease agreement with the Santa Barbara Sailing Club for the 8,677 square feet of dry boat storage area in the Santa Barbara Harbor. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barrios. Do we have any questions from the commission? Commissioner Stedman.
Yes. What was the date of that picture that you showed, Cesar? That one.
19.
I believe I took it from Google Maps 2 days ago.
Oh, 2 days. So it's pretty recent. So they don't.
Whatever the most recent Google Maps version of the aerial is.
Got it. Because in the past, haven't they kind of set up a little, like those sheds? Yeah, something there on the west end of that lot.
That is correct. Yeah, they do have structures in the southwest corner of the parking lot. So which is not, I believe this picture may be from 2018 or 2019.
Okay, yeah, it's a little bit more than boats, in other words.
That's correct. They have like a maintenance shed type of area. Yeah.
Party supplies, that sort of stuff. Okay, I don't know what's in the shed, but thank you.
Commissioner Nelson?
I'm just curious, for my own edification, I've never heard a complaint about the club, ever, nothing. So it's a good thing. But I'm just kind of curious, how is the club management? Does it have a board? Is the waterfront department a part of that board? Do we meet with them regularly to say, let's do more public programs, or let's do less, or we've got a problem? I'm just kind of curious about the governance of the sailing club and its relationship with the department.
Commissioner Nelson, good questions. Yeah, they do have a board. I often communicate with the chair. Generally with, when it comes to any pressing items that they may have, may want to discuss with the city. But currently, we don't have we're not part of that board, so
Right.
we don't have standing meetings or anything scheduled perhaps.
Okay.
As far as how they operate. But I do know that they participate every Wednesday, on the
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
on the Wednesdays, so
Yeah.
they're very active in that area, so it's definitely a resource.
thanks.
Any other questions? Oh,
I've got a question.
Commissioner Anderson?
Again, more just a knowledge question is, I guess, so they've been using this area since 59 or 60. Has it always been historically like a boat staging area? Or what was it before it was used for this, or even before it was paved? What else has been in that area?
Commissioner, that's a very good question, and I'm not aware of what it was prior to that time, but I'll be happy to look that up and contact you and let you know.
And then the other question is just, obviously they have other areas with us that they lease as well. Is the only other area off, is it slip A when you, right across from the yacht club? Is that where their other boats are? Is that where they launch off of? Or are they the ones that are all the way near the boat ramp?
No, this is a separate agreement, so they have a lease, it only includes that area that we've shown here in the map. They do have an agreement with the Santa Barbara Yacht Club to use their hoist, which is on the travel lift pier right below the 132 building, which is how they normally launch their vessels.
When does the lease come up, or is it filed similar terms, the one that's actually on the water, where they?
They don't have one of them.
Yeah, this is their only lease space with us.
Oh,
What's the facility down across from,
You might be thinking of Youth Sailing Foundation,
I am, yeah.
or UCSB also has a dock lease space with us.
it's like the blue one with, like where the snack shack is that burned down a little while ago?
Mm-hmm.
What is that sailing right across from there?
That's the sailing center.
Sailing center.
It's just another,
Gotcha.
they're a tenant.
Different, so this is the only lease that this group has.
That is
with us,
correct.
And they just ferry their boats from here, use the hoist, drop them in on occasion.
Correct.
These are the guys that are responsible for Wednesday, or organizing it.
The Santa Barbara Yacht Club, it's
Yeah.
the main organizer. And
Okay.
this group works closely with the yacht club, and it offers an opportunity for members of the community to enjoy and be introduced to sailing
Okay,
without having to perhaps be a member of the Santa Barbara Yacht Club.
thank you.
Oh.
about the sailing center? So what is its relationship? I mean, is it a lease? Is it a nonprofit? Or is it a private operation?
The sailing center is a tenant, so they're a business, for-profit business. They offer sailing lessons, rentals, sunset cruises, whale watching.
Yeah, and just, I think, provide some clarity, there is the sailing center, the yacht club, and then the sailing club, right? And this is for the sailing club specifically, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks. Commissioner McCray.
Yeah, and as much as we've dug into this a little bit, first, do they have more than one option to be able to be launched? Or are they dependent on the yacht club's facilities?
Commissioner McCray, if they can launch from the launch ramp, depending on the type of vessel they have, if they have a long keel, then they have to use a hoist, and they have an agreement with the Santa Barbara Yacht Club to use that hoist.
And then just as a follow-up, how are the two leases for the yacht, is the yacht club a lessee?
Yes, they have a land lease.
And how do those two mesh up so that the continuity of the access for them to launch is relatively assured through their lease term?
Yeah, they do have an agreement in there's a lease for the use of that space for the other travel lift pier that has there's a recently installed hoist, so they have an agreement between which the waterfront is not necessarily part of to use that equipment, to use the hoist.
And Commissioner McCray, we have a long-standing lease with the yacht club with no real intention of that changing. So it's an agreement between the yacht club and the sailing foundation or the sailing club that is outside of either of our leases, but it's up to the yacht club as long as they're in operation if they want to continue working with the sailing club.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm getting at is I just want to be assured that there's not a potential or a possibility for them to lose their access to launch within the term of their 3-year lease. And I guess all we're doing is recommending that you go into negotiations. So I'm hoping that you'll make sure that that gets worked out so that, they do have the ability to launch throughout their lease term.
Yeah, again, that's an agreement for that particular hoist. That's the yacht club's hoist, so they can choose to do what they want with it. I'm assuming they would. It's a long-standing relationship. People also launch sailing vessels from our city pier hoists. Hoist 4, people launch vessels from that as well, so.
Great, thanks.
Could
That's
be
a
an
great
alternative,
answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission regarding item number 4? Mr. Lopez, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, Chair Stanwyck.
Great, thank you. Any other further discussion on item number 4, or at this point, a motion would be in order?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to have the commission recommend staff negotiate a 3-year lease agreement with the Santa Barbara Sailing Club for 8677 square feet of dry boat storage area in the Santa Barbara Harbor.
I second that.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Lopez, could we please have a vote on item number 4?
Yes, and this is a recommendation by Vice Chair Ford, seconded by Commissioner Stedman to advance the staff recommendation for item 4. Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
Commissioner McCray?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson? Commissioner Stedman?
Aye?
Commissioner Anderson? Yes. Commissioner Cohen is absent, and Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. We move on now to item number 5 of new business, the review of the waterfront slip permit waitlist policy. And Mr. Lopez, could you please read the recommendation for item number 5 of new business for us?
Yes, this is item 5, recommendation that Harbor Commission review the waterfront slip permit waitlist policy and recommend that staff evaluate the current policy and bring proposed improvements to a future meeting for approval.
Great, thank you. And also, too, just looking at the recommendation, we're not looking for an actual solution here, just looking for direction and ideas to provide to the waterfront to move this forward. So with that, turn it over to the waterfront. Mr. Aldridge, thank you.
Good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Harbor Commissioners, and members of the public. I'm Harbor Operations Manager Nathan Aldridge, and tonight I will be presenting a review of the slip waitlist policy. So the focus this evening is on the slip waitlist policy and not on how slips are assigned in general. So as a reminder, in July of 2020, the Waterfront Director gave an in-depth presentation to the Harbor Commission on the city's slip assignment policy. So for more details, I would refer the Commission to that report. And so from brief history about the waitlist policy, in 2001, a grand jury report, the Waterfront Department found that the department was well-run and the marina was well-maintained. However, the grand jury had a number of findings related to waitlist policies, finding that the waiting list for slips had not been an effective way for a person to obtain a permit for a slip. The grand jury recommended that the city change its rules to eliminate the ability of a slip permittee to transfer that slip along with the sale of a vessel, and that all slip assignments should be by the way of the official waiting list. So ultimately, changes were made in 2005 that led to our current policy. In tonight's presentation, we'll look at the following questions. What is the waitlist policy? And does it serve our local coastal program? Does it serve the boating public? And should there be policy change? So our waitlist policy is split into 3 sections. The master waitlist, the sub-master waitlist, and a lottery list, which was developed in 2005. And I'll explain how each of these work. The master waitlist policy is divided into categories according to slip length. So that would be 30 foot, 40 foot, 50 foot, 60 foot, so on. Now, applicants on the master waiting list are categorized by desired slip length. And applicants may not change their category or desired slip length, and no new applicants shall be added to the master waiting list. So if a slip becomes available to this list, declining a slip offer will result in the removal of the applicant's name from this list. So any unassigned slips from this master waiting list shall be referred for assignment to what we term the sub-master waiting list. And just as a point of comparison or reference, most slips larger than 30 feet are immediately taken when they go to this master wait list. And for the sub-master wait list policy, all applicants in the sub-length categories on the master waiting list are also applicants in this sub-master waiting list. And this is ordered chronologically according to application date. And this is important. It is not divided into slip length categories. And so if a slip is offered in the sub-master list and is declined, it will go down the list, offered to the second applicant on the list, and so on, until the slip is either accepted by an applicant or is declined by all applicants on this sub-master list. And a point of comparison for the master wait list is declining a slip offer here in the sub-master will not result in removal of the applicant's name from this list. If there are any unassigned slips from the sub-master waiting list, those will be referred to what we term a lottery list. So for example, if a 40-foot slip becomes available to the master wait list, and no one in that category of the first master wait list and the 40-foot slips take it, their name is removed from that list on the master list. And then the slip would go to the sub-master list, where the larger wait list slip names get an opportunity to accept this. And say someone is waiting for a 50-foot slip, and the 40-foot comes. If they do not accept that, their name still remains on this sub-master list. And finally, the lottery waitlist policy is in place for any unassigned slips from either the master waiting list or the sub-master waiting list are offered to this lottery list. And this is unique in that the lottery list is comprised of applicants selected by a lot at a Harbor Commission, by the Harbor Commission chair in a public meeting. And if a slip assignment offer is declined on the lottery list, the slip will be held by the Waterfront Department's slip inventory for a visitor slip, and then after a period of 6 months is re-offered into this lottery list, and then so on and so on. And similar to the submaster, declining a slip offer will not result in removal of the applicant's name from the lottery list. So the second question for this evening is, does this wait list policy serve our local coastal program? And some relevant sections in our land use plan are up on our screen. Number one, in policy 2.2-1 in harbor development, calls for the harbor should be a working harbor with priority given to coastal dependent uses such as commercial fishing and recreational boating for all users and income groups. And secondly, policy 2.2-12, a variety of berthing opportunities. We should provide a variety of berthing opportunities reflecting state, regional, and local demand for a variety of slip sizes and affordability throughout the harbor. So the next question is, does this waitlist policy serve the boating public? As you all know, demand vastly outweighs supply for our slips in our harbor. And on the rare occasion a slip permit does become available to the waitlist, the individual often flips that slip permit privately as soon as possible. So a recent 50-foot slip permit that was received off the waitlist at no cost was immediately sold for approximately $300,000. Unfortunately, this current system encourages some individuals to remain on this waitlist with no intention of using the slip for recreational or commercial purposes. And this process is at odds with the local coastal program's intended use of the harbor. And to point out, when I use the term flipping, as you may know, is basically when the individual finds someone to pay them to transfer their name onto the slip permit, with or without that boat. And our question for this evening is, should there be policy change? The waitlist policy has not been examined in decades. Another point is that almost half of the names on our master waitlist already have a slip in the harbor. The Harbor Commission has expressed interest in increasing public access opportunities for slips in our harbor. And to close, according to State Lands Commission letter from several years back that I found, they said that the fair and equitable access to the tidelands is a fundamental value of the public trust doctrine, and the city has a duty to protect the people's common heritage in our tidelands. And tonight's recommendation is that Harbor Commission review the waterfront's slip permit waitlist policy and recommend that staff evaluate the current policy and bring proposed improvements for a future meeting for approval. And with that, I am happy to take questions from our commission.
Great, thank you, Mr. Aldridge. Do we have questions from the commission regarding this item? Commissioner McCray.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. Has there been much consideration so far of making slips that go to either of the wait lists or the lottery non-transferable at that point?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner McCray. That's an excellent question, and that idea has been floated internally with staff in the waterfront, and particularly after our recent review of the CUDA doc, as an opportunity to address this specific problem. So yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stedman?
Yes, thank you. This is obviously a complex problem. Relative to the size of our harbor, 1,200 slips roughly, 1,100, are there other harbors of similar size that do not have this complex waitlist policy?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Stedman. When I was doing some look back into that grand jury report, there was also a report from around that same time, and I'm thinking 2008, and I have to look back to find the exact date, and I can get that information to you. But the State Lands Commission did look into a series of about 8 or 9 different harbors throughout our state, from up north all the way down for south from where we are, and examined slip assignment policy and waitlist policies, and found a fairly large variety exactly what you're asking. I know just anecdotally, there are some harbors, some public marinas up at north in San Francisco that every single slip, when it is their transfer, immediately goes back to the department, which is very different from what we do. Some of them do not have as detailed a slip assignment and waitlist policies that I attach to tonight's report. As you can see, reading through that is complicated, and you can tell that a lot was added on after the fact to try to close loopholes and address this issue. So I think my short answer for you is yes, not only has the state looked at this exact issue in terms of equity and public use of space, but they did an examination of close to a dozen marinas, and there's a variety of ways that they do handle that.
Well, the least I can say on this entire subject is the policy's deprecated. So I endorse your report and maybe the possibility of future changes. Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson?
I'm curious, how did I guess the way I look at it real simply is we want more people off the list. If the list becomes available, that's an opportunity to put the public or a priority use, recreational or commercial fishing. So if you say no, if you're on the list and you say no, why aren't you removed from the list? What was the thinking and motivation historically to allow people to stay on a list when they've said no?
And thank you, Commissioner Nelson. That's another excellent question. My understanding from talking to staff who have longer memories than I do is that if someone, let's assume good intentions or best intentions, has a 30-foot boat or 40-foot boat, and that's what they got, and they're sitting on it for 15 years or so, and a 30-foot slip comes available, and their name is called, and they just can't make it work. They didn't want to penalize that individual because they're waiting for that specific slip and that specific slip size. In the case of that submaster list, that's a very good question. And for us, I think as a waterfront, once again, our priority is increasing public access, enhancing public access. And it probably won't surprise you that we have absolutely no trouble moving slips in the larger sizes off any of these lists. And once you get down to under a 30-foot slip, 28, 25, 20-foot slips, those are, for a myriad of reasons, in less demand.
Thank you. Like Commissioner Stebbins, I think it's a good idea for all these years.
Commissioner Anderson?
Are there any legal fears or repercussions we're thinking about if we made adjustments to the list and we took people off a list that have been on it for a certain amount of time? Did they sign anything saying they were entitled to stay on the list for a set amount of time? Or are there any legal concerns that are coming around for us making possible changes to it? And again, echoing the thoughts of these guys, it does feel like something that's worth review.
Yeah, and so in order to place your name on a wait list, it costs an initial fee, and then each year is $40 to be on that wait list to maintain your name. And if an individual decides to not pay that $40, their name is taken off that list. But there are no guarantees or assurances that by remaining on any of these lists, you will get a slip. Once again, anecdotally, the longest name on our master wait list, in fact, all of our master wait list names that are closed now are from the 90s. I believe the oldest is from 1992. So, doing the math, it's several decades of an individual waiting for a slip, and it does happen occasionally, but from the example I gave for a larger slip, the most likely result for one of those individuals is that they will sell that slip and make a profit.
Vice Chair Ford?
Thanks for the presentation. It was really interesting, and I must say the policy really rubs me the wrong way. I'm trying to figure out what would be the reason not to look into changes and try to make this more equitable and fair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ford. This is something that has it's been discussed internally for some time, and I think with, once again, citing the coup de doc as an example of being able to offer up, 9 brand-new commercial designated slips, commercial fishing slips there, and with the interest and support of the commission and staff internally to make those slips non-transferable. I think that got the dialogue started to really sort of dig into this a little bit, and staff thought it appropriate to bring to Harbor Commission for further review and hopefully guidance on some changes to the policy.
I think it's really smart. I can't, all my life I've known how hard it was to get a slip, and thought this waiting list had some fairness to it, but the fact that people just turn it around for a profit really rubs me the wrong way. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Commissioner McCray?
Yeah, 1990s, huh? So if someone is on that waiting list currently, and say they decide that they are now 90 years old, but they want to transfer their spot to a son or a daughter, is that something that they can do? And I'm kind of hoping not.
Yeah, so the names who are on that wait list policy are fixed.
Well, that's one thing that's working right so far. I wholeheartedly support this effort.
Thank you, Commissioner McCray. Yeah, I definitely think it's worth review. I was just curious, though, regarding solutions. The one that I'm kind of hearing is just to make these non-transferable. Is there any other ideas or solutions that the waterfront has looked into?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Stanwyck. Once again, in internal conversations we've had, looking at the transferability is probably one of the most obvious solutions, is one of the cleanest as well.
Yeah.
I think generally, in my way of thinking, some of the most elegant solutions tend to be the shortest. But once again, we didn't want to put the cart before the horse and come up with a fully baked policy and bring to the commission ahead of time. Our intention was to involve the commission in this and provide opportunity for public comment and have the public weigh in as well. And based upon feedback from this evening, to come back with an or several options at a future Harbor Commission date for commission review.
Got it. Also, too, you referenced the coup de doc because you made those slips non-transferable. What's that process like? Like, if we were to add that as like a clause to these slips, is that something that's difficult? Does it have to go through like legal or city attorney to change the slips on those?
Yes, thank you, Chair Stanwyck. At the question of a policy change, it would be an amendment to the municipal code. And so similar to in ordinance committee, once again, it would be a very simple change if it was the case. It would be either a line or clause or amendment to an existing code. We wouldn't have to take out a new code most likely and add something, but there would be an amendment code change where, once again, the process, come to Harbor Commission, and then if it progressed past that, we go to ordinance committee, and if it progressed past, we go to council twice, and then would become law from the municipal code.
Great, thank you. Commissioner McCray, do you have another question?
Yeah, I just have a comment, and that is, with respect to making the slips non-transferable, we do have many people who have paid a premium for a boat in a slip. And it would be unfair to make those slips for those people non-transferable because they've actually invested quite a bit in it. And perhaps, honestly, they are paying full retail value for their opportunity to be in that slip because not only are they paying the monthly slip fee, but they're also paying a premium and not having that additional money that they paid out in order to get access to that slip in the first place, either by not having it to be able to be invested, or maybe they're paying interest on that. So their monthly outgo is the slip fee plus whatever they're paying on whatever loan they had to get in order to purchase that boat. So there's that question of equity as well. And so when we go through this, and I expect that we will address that and make sure that the current slip holders that have paid a premium to be able to be in those slips don't really get hurt.
Yeah, and thank you, Commissioner McCray, and his point is well taken in differentiating between, the sale through either a broker or privately of a vessel and a slip with its intended use for boating, whether it's recreational or commercial, comparing to, what we're discussing this evening, which is a name on a waiting list, which for a nominal yearly fee that someone has an opportunity to profit several hundred thousands of dollars on, with may or may not have any interest in using the slip or, the tidelands for its intended purpose. So thank you for that distinction.
Yeah, and Commissioner McCray, Chair Stanwyck, I just want to be really double clear to the public and to the commission. We're really only talking about slips that are received off the wait list for $0. And so that non-transferability idea does check a lot of boxes. It really ensures that people who are receiving those slips truly want them to recreationally boat. There's not kind of an ulterior motive there. But we're not proposing making any changes with slips that are acquired through assignment or transfer or purchase through a broker.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Nelson. Oh, can you turn your mic on?
And then Commissioner McCray stated, we shouldn't forget that they pay taxes on the value of that slip, in addition to everything else is invested.
Yeah, thanks for that. Any other questions from the commission on this item? Do we have any public comment on this item, Mr. Lopez?
There are no hands raised and no speaker slips submitted, Chair Stanwyck.
Great, thank you.
Excuse me,
Yeah, I
Chair-
mean, for
sorry,
my,
Chair.
oh, yes.
Sorry, Chair Stanwyck. Chris Rowland just raised his hand in
Oh.
Zoom. So, Chris Rowland, you are unmuted and can go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
I won't take 2 minutes. I appreciate your time. I want to agree with McCray and whoever else. If you are going to do the non-transferable, I would agree with it on slips that they have no skin in the game. I thank Mike for taking the time to teach me a little bit more about the operations here. I missed the first part of the meeting. Don't know if I missed the potential 5% increase. I will address that later. But thanks for clearing this up, Mike, that this is potentially for the no skin in the game wait list. And I would agree with that policy. I think that's a good policy moving forward. That's a slow way to put the genie back into the bottle. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the public comment. Okay, any other discussion from the commission on this? All right, just from my perspective, I mean, when I purchased a boat and a slip about 8 years ago and the rights to the slip, it was a pretty simple process. Purchased the boat, purchased the rights to a slip, went through the broker, and the wait list was just a very confusing process because really, there was nobody getting slips off of the wait list. And 8 years later, that's kind of the same thing. And even when I explain it to people, it's kind of a confusing item, even at this point. So, I mean, I would definitely be supportive of a review on this. But yeah, it seems like everybody that's on the wait list is pure speculators at this point, from my perspective. Any other comments on this? Or at this point, we would entertain a motion to move this forward to have the waterfront review this.
So moved.
Seconded.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation brought forth by the staff. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation and the motion?
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Commissioner Stedman. And the recommendation is that Harbor Commission review the waterfront slip permit waitlist policy and recommend that staff evaluate the current policy and bring proposed improvements to a future meeting for approval.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Would anybody like to speak towards that motion? Great, with that, we'll take a vote, please.
Commissioner McCray,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stedman,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen is absent, Commissioner Ford,
Aye.
Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. Okay, we can move on now to item number 6, the waterfront strategic planning discussion. The recommendation is that the Harbor Commission review and advise on the use of a consultant-led strategic planning workshop and public survey and provide recommendations to staff on the next step. So with that, we'll turn it over to the waterfront. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Commission and members of the public. Again, Mike Wiltshire, Waterfront Director. Just wanted to take some time to continue the discussion on strategic planning. So as you all know, it's been kind of top of our priority list for the past year or so. So as a reminder for the commission, next slide. As a reminder for the commission and public, here's kind of a rough timeline of when we started discussing strategic planning. So a lot of this discussion tonight and moving forward is really being driven by the fact that a strategic planning effort is a top priority of the Harbor Commission. So the strategic planning work group was formed back in January of 2024. So that's like a kind of a sub work group of 3 Harbor Commissioners. Strategic planning was also identified as a top priority at our January 2025 priority workshop. And to date, we have discussed strategic planning at 3 full Harbor Commission meetings, inclusive of tonight. And most recently at the April 17th Harbor Commission meeting, there was an action to kind of hone in the scope of work and extend its timeline through September. So the Harbor Commission has expressed continued interest in this, and so the waterfront staff is supportive and kind of working towards keeping the ball moving on this topic. Next slide. So with respect to strategic planning, since last meeting, staff has kind of worked and come up with really 2 suggestions going forward that we're looking for a little bit of feedback from the Harbor Commission on. This is really sort of at a high level right now, just looking for some direction from the commission. So first off, the strategic planning work group wasn't able to meet between now and the last meeting with staff. It was really just kind of a scheduling issue, so really bringing this to the whole Harbor Commission now. But for a suggested path forward, we're suggesting a potential contract with a consultant to lead a strategic planning effort. This is happening with City Council, it happened with the City Executive Team, and so kind of mirroring that for something that is specific to the Waterfront and Harbor Commission would be something that would be possible moving forward. And then the second idea is to essentially internally develop a basic community survey, and this would be something that would be a no-dollar effort. This would be staff-led, just to gather some information from the public. I'll talk more about these 2 items in the next slides. Next slide. So with respect to a strategic planning workshop, so as you know, City Council as well as our City Executive Management Team is utilizing a consultant to guide a strategic planning process. City Council's strategic planning workshop was scheduled for early May. It got postponed till June 3rd. The Executive Management Strategic Planning Workshop has already occurred. I participated in that full-day event. So one option for us, the Waterfront Harbor Commission, is we could use waterfront funds to pay for a consultant-led similar process for the Waterfront and Harbor Commission as like a defining next step on where we want to go with this effort. Next slide. To provide a little more background, over the last couple weeks, myself, Waterfront, we reached out to Raftellus, who's the consultant who contracted with City Council and the City Executive Team to run their strategic planning process. Asked them for a proposal, a draft proposal on running a similar process. Their proposal included some information gathering, some community outreach, meeting with staff, meeting with harbor commissioners, and then facilitating a one-day workshop with the aim of providing kind of a consolidated report out. Their proposal that they provided just this week came in at the cost of $21,000. Again, it's very high level. We just received it recently. There's room to negotiate services, add scope, decrease scope. So we're really here tonight just kind of bringing this to the Harbor Commission's attention to kind of frame some costing on what it would take to have somebody from the outside lead a process like this. Some additional services that were not included in our proposal that they are doing with City Council are essentially taking it all the way through the process to develop a complete strategic plan. So with this proposal they provided us, it was essentially hold a workshop, gather some info, report back to us, have a report and some output, but not guiding it through essentially an entire strategic plan. So again, a recommendation going forward could be to add scope to kind of mirror what City Council's doing and get some costing there. For reference, the contract that Raftellus had with City Council is roughly $80,000 for their process. I don't think our portion, being kind of a smaller operation, would be to that level, but just to put it in scale, it'd probably be in the $40,000, $50,000 range. Next slide. A little bit of more lower hanging fruit out of the meetings with the strategic planning work group and Harbor Commission over the past. It's become really apparent that like community input is a huge part of this. So a second proposed action is simpler, lower cost. So it would be a staff-led community survey to gather input from waterfront stakeholders. So the idea would be to put this survey out in the coming months and really have that data as a baseline to inform if we do move forward with a strategic planning workshop. The hope would be in the next few weeks or month to kind of work on those questions with the strategic planning work group to kind of get some consensus on what we want to poll the community on. But some of them could be, based on current and desired mix of uses at the waterfront, ranking of our waterfront amenities, compliance with local coastal program, and really kind of outreach to our tenants to get a take on how they feel about our mix of businesses, what can help them, what cannot. I think that data would be really helpful to have as baseline data. It doesn't always have to be perfect. If we get a survey out, we can kind of glean information from that data and even follow up with an additional survey or just really use it as a baseline. So I do think it would be a helpful, low-cost way to gather input from the community on strategic planning. Next slide. So that was all we were bringing to you tonight with strategic planning. So again, the recommendation is that Harbor Commission review and advise on the use of a consultant-led strategic planning workshop and public survey and provide recommendations to staff on next steps. So I'll turn it back to the commission, and we're really looking for some input on willingness to move forward with this. There is a budgetary element to the hiring a consultant. The survey is no budgetary item, but kind of getting a feel for where the Harbor Commission feels we should go on that.
Great, thank you, Director Wiltshire. Questions from the commission? Commissioner McCray.
Yeah, what year's budget would you expect this to come out of?
The $21,000 amount is small enough that, it's a large amount of money, but we could pull that out of our operating budget this fiscal year with some either salary savings from vacant positions, or we could trim it off some capital projects, or just some unspent contract we could go through. So it's possible to absorb that in our operating budget.
And what's your sense, Raftella, the consultant Raftellis, what's your sense of their experience with Santa Barbara, and then also with waterfronts and boats and so forth in general?
Yeah, that's like really the nexus why we lean, and we don't necessarily have to go with them or anybody. This was just a first crack. They are the consultant that City Council chose and that the executive management team chose, so they're already pretty ingrained in Santa Barbara's process. They're a pretty large consulting firm that deals really strictly with municipalities and management training and municipalities and utilities, really. So this is their wheelhouse. I think we'd lose some of that connectivity with City Council and what they've already been doing already, were we to go with a different consultant. So that was my line of thinking with kind of keeping that continuity.
And then with respect to the timeline, are you thinking that the two would run concurrently, or that the city would go first, or how do you envision that at this point?
I've actually been requested or asked that kind of City Council lead with that. So with their process on June 3rd, I'm sure there'd be some time to get some deliverable. We don't have a Harbor Commission meeting in June, so staff could use that time to kind of work behind the scenes. If you guys did want to go through with this, we have to go through our purchasing and contracting methods, so it would take some time to get Raftellis under contract. But my estimation would be, we could kind of gear up for a community and Harbor Commission strategic planning workshop sometime in the early fall, maybe August, September.
And so you kind of envision that the two processes would more or less go concurrently, given that the city job is a bigger job, and so that before they came out with a final report, for example, with the city, they would be fairly well along on the data gathering and having run workshops and so forth with respect to the harbor?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be really valuable for us to have the outcomes from City Council, being that the commission is appointed by council. And so I'm not certain where that will lead yet, or if there will be anything waterfront specific, but certainly if there is, it would be nice to know that before we engage in our strategic planning process. So hopefully we can let them at least have their workshop and kind of get some of those details fleshed out while we're ironing out a contract, and Reftelis could still be meeting with individual harbor commissioners, meeting with staff, kind of getting ready for that workshop.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Ford?
Thank you. So just to reiterate, this kind of a proposal would include 3 steps: the gathering of information, planning and facilitation, and then a follow-up report and 1-pager. Could you just restate again what you thought the additional steps are that City Council is engaging for?
Yeah, in looking over the city council proposal, it's essentially these 3 steps with 2 more. So 1 more element on community outreach, and then essentially taking that draft 1-pager report, summary report, and taking that through to having a kind of a full-fledged strategic plan.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stedman?
Yes, as a professional consultant, I have a question for you. The cost control aspect, so is this consultancy going to charge by milestones, or do we have a negotiated rate card? How are we going to get the most out of the consultants?
Yeah, we can do that a few ways. Again, we're not under contract with anybody at this point in time, and so if we go forward, it would be Waterfront staff job to essentially negotiate a contract. We can do that based on time and materials. We can do that based on service provided, but that will be all called out in the contract language that we both sign off on, the consultant and us. And so I believe the city's contract is kind of milestones, workshop this, hours, deliverables, and so we could probably mirror that, and it would make the most sense in a contract like this.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of a hybrid contract, but the milestone method might deliver more value.
Commissioner Nelson?
To provide some context, we just finished the discussion about the wait list policy being terribly old and not reviewed for decades. Planning at the harbor planning has not occurred since 1996, was when the last master plan was done. And I think one of the reasons why it has risen to the top of our priority list is we think that's too long, and we need to take another look at the priorities that have been established, recognizing that the local coastal plan has provided direction to all of the activities, businesses, and programs of the waterfront. But within that, I thought that we had a good discussion between the entire Harbor Commission, that we ought to take a look at those policies, particularly the ones that say our top priority is coastal dependent uses. Second priorities are coastal related uses, and then third, visitor serving uses. Those are the 3 big drivers of activity at the harbor. And that we would focus on those 3 drivers and come up with strategic priorities that could drive operating budgets, that could drive capital budgets. And I don't think that a 1-page summary after a single workshop is sufficient to satisfy the planning need that we have. Do I think it's a great idea to work with the consultant that has been selected by the City Council? Absolutely. I think that whatever we do, we ought to do it and consistent with direction that we've had from the City Council. But I'm not sure, as proposed, we're going far enough. It's not really a strategic plan that's being produced. It's a workshop. that will make recommendations, one-page recommendations based on a community survey, what everybody does, or a one night. I don't believe that's enough, personally, and I'm only one voice on this. I mean, from my standpoint, there are stakeholders and constituents for each of those three categories: visitor serving, coastal dependent, and coastal related. And all I'm saying is we ought to almost have a workshop on each one of those major activity areas. That's just my thinking, if we're going to do a full-blown effort, because what we decided was it was too expensive and probably ill-advised to do a 2-year planning process that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, like the airport just performed. But what we wanted to do was something abbreviated and a full strategic planning process. And at a minimum, what the city council is doing is what I think we ought to do. I think we ought to go the full distance with that, and not just do a workshop and a community survey. But I really think we should engage with the the consultant that the city council has done. I think we should do the community survey. That's always a good idea to do that. But I'd like to see us actually do a strategic plan. And in terms of, we were talking about other harbors and what do other harbors do? Well, most harbors don't just have strategic planning processes, they have master plans all along this coast. They have harbor master plans, and they update them frequently every 2 to 3 years. We don't do that. And so what this strategic planning process was basically, I thought, a compromise from doing a full-blown, very expensive long-term planning process, to basically do a strategic planning process that we could, revisit every year. And I don't feel that, as proposed, we get that with this $21,000 effort. But we'll obviously, it's an improvement. It's a step in the right direction, and to do it consistently with the way the city is proceeding is fine with me.
Great. Vice Chair Ford.
Thanks. Just to clarify, Commissioner Nelson, they said that they're giving a full report, and if we wanted a one-pager to sort of, make it real easy for people to follow. But I envision that this is a much more comprehensive report that comes out of this. I completely agree with you. I know that this meeting I do believe we should advise the waterfront to go forward to at least begin this process. I plan to go to the June 3rd meeting for the city council, and I really want to feel after I attend that meeting that there's potential, as you said, Commissioner Nelson, to expand, to really make this a worthwhile endeavor. One day it's hard to imagine that one day would be enough, but one day is a start, as long as we were all on the same page that it's just a start.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with this. I like the idea of working, as Commissioner Nelson said, with the same consultant as the city. It makes a lot of sense to me. Also, too, I guess while the city is doing it, I don't think it could hurt to do the community outreach. I know we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from the community, both on the vessel insurance survey, as well as, was there one other survey that we did that we got a lot of really good information from? Was it on the
Slip assignment policy?
slip assignment? Yeah. Is that any cost to the waterfront to do a survey for the most part and gather information to give to the future consultant?
No, we can put those out pretty regularly. They're not official sanctioned surveys. I mean,
Right.
as many people can fill it out as they want, but I think it does provide a good baseline data and a really good input. So we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
And I think it'd be a good idea to work with the strategic planning work group over the next month or two, kind of shelling out those questions, and then we could have some data by the time our next Harbor Commission meeting rolls around, either July or August. Review that data. If it missed the mark, we can kind of go back out, but it at least allows us to gather some pretty healthy baseline data.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Stedman.
Yeah, one final comment. I agree with Commissioner or Vice Chair Ford. No consultant is going to just leave you with a one-pager. I can guarantee you that. You'll get a fulsome report.
Yeah, and just to speak to that a little bit, to Commissioner Stedman's point on cost controls, Raftellus isn't going away. So I think a responsible way to do this is step through it and stepwise. You know, if we get through these first 3 steps and pay $21,000 and it doesn't work at all, we're not on the hook for a whole bunch more. If we kind of get a contract with them for everything all up front, we're kind of stuck. And so we can always add to this as we go, but it's harder to kind of wind that back. So I think the stepwise approach is responsible.
Yeah, you can break it into sprints. That's typically how we bill our client. That's what we call them. Professional term, so.
Nice, thanks. Okay, do we have any general, or any public comment on this item, Mr. Lopez?
There are no hands raised and no speaker slips submitted, Chair Stanwyck.
Great, thank you. All right, any other discussion on this item? Or at this point, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that Harbor Commission review and advise on the use of a consultant-led strategic planning workshop and public survey and provide recommendations to staff on next steps.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation and call for our vote, please?
So the recommendation is that Harbor Commission review and advise on the use of a consultant-led strategic planning workshop and public survey and provide recommendations to staff on next steps. And this is a motion by Commissioner Stedman, seconded by Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen is absent. Commissioner Ford.
Aye.
Commissioner McCray.
Yes.
And Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. That concludes new business for the agenda. We will move on now to the department updates. And item number 7, the director's report.
All right, Commission, I'll be brief with mine. I just have one item tonight, somewhat of a good news item. Next slide. So I wanted to share some information that the Waterfront is submitting a grant application for repair and reconstruction of the commercial ice house. Commissioner Nelson's well aware of this. It's a California Jobs First Regional Investment Initiative grant. So it's a state level grant that has roughly $145 million available in grant funds. And it's really focused on job creation, underserved sectors, infrastructure. There's a large infrastructure component and economic development. Kind of a short turnaround, so the applications are due May 28th. So we're working on that right now, both myself and Nico on our component. Next slide. A really unique part of this grant application is so the Waterfront is getting the opportunity to collaborate with a number of local entities to essentially submit this as a bundled or like cluster grant is what they're calling it. So the agencies that we're working with are Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara, Harmony Coast Aquaculture Institute, Santa Barbara Food Action Network, and Merino Soil Foods. So the waterfront portion of the grant is $1.6 million, specifically for the commercial ice house. But up on the screen are the other grant requests totaling a little bit over $12 million from the other entities. Something to note that these grants can be awarded separately. So although we're submitting as a collaborative region, they can kind of pick and choose between them. And throwing this out there, as with any grants, there is some headwinds. I mean, it's kind of a long shot on this one, but it's a really good opportunity to collaborate with all the folks who are up there and kind of try our hand at one of these kind of bundled collaborative grant style approaches. So we're hoping to get all that together by the 28th. We'll keep the Harbor Commission posted on where that grant process goes. But again, hopeful, always nice to get money for repairing aging infrastructure. So with that, I'll pass it back to the Commission and take any questions.
Any questions from the Commission? Commissioner Nelson.
Oh, I want to, again, buttress what Director Wiltshire is speaking about. It's a long shot, but it's a heavy lift. And the work that this application will require the Waterfront Department to do is really, really extenuating. But the thinking of all of the names and logos on that is here's an opportunity to participate in a $145 million, infrastructure state grant. And there were originally some 80 folks that basically asked for permission to be invited to submit a grant application, and we were one of the 40. About half of them were allowed to go forward with the grant. But again, I want you to realize that even if we're not successful, this is, I believe, a really incredibly good exercise for the Waterfront Department to undertake, because grant applications and grant funding can be really important to an operation like the waterfront. So, thank you.
Commissioner McCray?
So does that mean we made the first cut already?
That's exactly what that means.
Congratulations.
And there was one logo that wasn't on there, was the SBCC, Santa Barbara Community College, is the one that says Maritime Ecosystem Support at the Ocean Collective. That is part of the project that we received $200,000 for to establish the Ocean Collective and boat gear and cold storage and ocean careers curriculum. What the community college wants to use that funds for is sort of an internship program that brings people into these ocean careers, and possibly it could even provide a stipend as part of an internship program as a way of encouraging companies, organizations, and entities to take these students. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So good on you all for doing the work to turn in a full proposal.
I would point that kudos to Nico.
Nice.
He's taking on he's taking on a lot of it.
Good job, Nico.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, there's no, I mean, to submit grant applications, there's no real downside to that, right? I mean, we could submit numerous ones for the most part, right?
It's extremely administratively burdensome.
Okay.
And for the waterfront's point of view, you're looking at that staff in this room who will be taking that kind of thing on. And so other than it taking us away from our usual needs, but so as a city and as the waterfront, we kind of agree, you try and be strategic as you can. There's a lot of grant opportunities. You can spend a lot of time doing them. And a lot of the times those grants come with requirements, and so long-running administrative requirements on how you have to use that money, how you have to justify it. And so it sounds nice to get that. Some of them have matching requirements, and so as a city, we try and really evaluate that up front to make sure that it's like the lifespan of the grant is a smart move.
Awesome. Well, yeah, kudos to the waterfront for that. I just know, looking at the ice house, that was one of the big expenditures I remember a few years ago, that the quote came back way higher than we thought. And then we just kind of moved on from that. I think we did updates, and we never actually completed that, right?
Yeah, and one of the benefits of this grant application is we essentially have a ready-to-build set of plans, a cost estimate, and all that stuff teed up. So it's easy to feed that into the grant application.
That's great. Thanks for that update. Yeah, great work. With that, I don't think we have any more questions on the director's report. Any other questions from the commission on the director's report? Okay. We can move on to item number 8, the business service report. Mr. Barrios.
Chair Stanaway, Commissioners, again, good evening. As part of my business services report, I will provide a brief update on the RFP process currently underway for office space located at 125 Harbor Way. This is for suite number 21, which is upstairs. The latest lease term for this office expired on April 30th of 2025, and the office is now vacant and being renovated by waterfront facility staff. As of today, they were painting and installing a new floor, so it's going to look very, very nice once it's done. So as such, the waterfront is currently in the process of issuing a request for proposal, or RFP, as we call it, to acquire a new tenant. So here you have a visual of the office space, which is the circle in red. And location, has a great view, as you can see here, has ocean view and faces the channel. Okay, so as part of this process, the Harbor Commission's RFP work group met with staff on April 23rd to discuss and begin drafting the new RFP. Following the discussions and comprehensive review, the RFP is expected to be completed and released the second week of May, which the goal is to release it this week. And once released, it will remain open for about 30 days, allowing all the interested parties to review and submit their proposals. So regarding the next steps in the process, once the application process closes in June, staff will review all the applicants and will meet with the RFP work group to make a new tenant selection, and then bring this back for a recommendation to the full Harbor Commission. We're hoping to have a special meeting in June, so we don't have a regular meeting scheduled in June at this time, but we're planning to have and propose this to the commission to have a special meeting sometime in mid to late June to review this process in an effort to expedite the lease negotiation with the new tenant. So following the June recommendation from the Harbor Commission, staff will begin lease negotiations with the selected business, and then return in July for the commission to recommend to the city council approval. And that concludes my brief presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Barrios. Do we have any questions from the commission?
Oh, sorry.
Vice Chair Ford?
Just wanted to clarify, in the report, it said that it will be completed and released the second week of May. So we're in the second week of May. Tell me more about the timeline.
Commissioner Ford, that's correct. So yeah, the goal is to release this by at least tomorrow. We sent the, it was, Ms. Angela Rodriguez sent the draft, the final draft to the work group to review and then provide any feedback. So all the changes that we made, adjustments, were based on the meeting we just had. It's just a 2-page draft. So yeah, if the work group chooses to release that back to us by tomorrow, we'll be able to do that. Otherwise, we may have to table it to either Monday or Tuesday for release.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the business services report? No? Oh, Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, and given the fact, what I like is, given the fact that we had a number of discussions tonight that were driven about the local coastal plan and what it recommends that we do with our waterfront, we were actually able, I think the work group was actually, in working with staff, was able to improve the RFP process in a way that focused on giving additional credit for those proposals that better address the coastal dependent uses as recommended by the local coastal plan. So.
Thanks. Okay, if there's no other questions or discussion, we can move on to item number 9, the Harbor Operations Report.
Good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Harbor Commissioners, members of the public. Once again, I'm Harbor Operations Manager Nathan Aldridge, and I'd like to present this evening's Harbor Operations Report. On May 3rd, Operation Clean Sweep attracted approximately 30 volunteer dock workers and 8 divers who removed over 2,000 pounds of debris from our seafloor, bringing our 16-year total to over 25 tons. And once again, Operation Clean Sweep is our department's seafloor cleanup program. This total amount is about 50,000 pounds of trash and debris that has been removed from all different marinas and sections of our harbor. This year we concentrated the end of Marina 1, so fingers M through S. So items removed this year included a sailboat mast, several crab receivers, some hoop nets, hundreds of feet of anchor chain, carpet, trash cans, old tires, and a bicycle. You can see that in the image all covered in muck, provided by Mark Stouter. So the waterfront is especially grateful to Rick Sanchez and his divers at Salty Dog Dive Services. So I'd like to point out that year after year, they volunteered their divers and their time to keep our harbor floor clean. And also a big thank you to Tidy Seas, Santa Barbara Sail, Power Squadron, waterfront facility staff, of course, and all the other individual participants throughout the community who came out for a great day. And no injuries reported. As May is a big month for activities, also on this Saturday is our annual nautical swap meet. So calling all of our treasure hunters, our 14th annual swap meet will be in our main harbor parking lot from 8 o'clock until noon. If you've been down the harbor, you see we've already sort of gotten that area ready to go, clearing cars, admissions free. We'll have dozens of vendors all throughout California displaying and selling all marine and nautical items. So come on down, look for your new treasure find. Enjoy some coffee and complimentary refreshments from our Harbor Merchants Association. There's still time to sign up if you'd like to be a vendor. It's only $25, and you can go to our department's website or physically come into our waterfront department office. And concurrently with that event, a little bit later, if you are down there at our Harbor Patrol dock and the launch ramp area, we're going to have Safe Boating Awareness Day. 12:30, weather dependent and staffing dependent from the Coast Guard. They're going to bring their new helicopter out to train with our Harbor Patrol officers on helicopter hoisting operations. So public is invited to come off, to view off the breakwater, to see that joint training. Officers will also be available throughout that sort of morning at the patrol dock and at the launch ramp to discuss safe boating and proper safety equipment and the release of our new PFD loaner station next to the human-powered dock at the apron of the launch ramp there. So hoping for some great weather, and with that, I'll turn it back over to the commission.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Aldridge. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Stedman.
Yes. On Operation Clean Sweep, over the years, are we still collecting the same amount of debris, or is that, decreasing?
Yeah, Commissioner Stedman, great question. Speaking to Rick Sanchez from Salty Dog about that, since he's been involved for quite some time, the first few years were the heaviest years we found. And hearing from his old tales of what is pulled out, refrigerators, gigantic tractor tires, I mean, you name it. Luckily, I think the good sign is we're getting less and less every year. So we've made a good dent in it. I think our public messaging and environmental messaging from our Clean Marina program, everything from dock walks and having disposal sites for hazardous materials, all those things have contributed, I think, to the marina tenants and the slip permittees and the visitors to keep the harbor cleaner. And also, I think we've made a big dent in a lot of that original debris and junk before we even hosted that event. So it's nice to see. And we like to see the numbers. I think everybody likes to see how many tons we've pulled up, and there's a great picture to have too. But in some ways, it's also nice to not get a bunch of junk. because I think it shows that I think our messages are working and we're doing a good job of keeping that water clean. And also for just the divers that have to make their living down there, either, cleaning boats or working on boats, a clean harbor is a safe harbor. So it's nice to have a thin report sometimes at the end of the event.
Thank you for your good work.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Commissioner Nelson?
More of an observation than a question. I'm really glad you guys are promoting sort of the land, air, and sea event. I come from a small community on Chesapeake Bay, and the air and sea rescues that the Coast Guard were required to do often became a giant public event, and the local Chamber of Commerce and the communities would actually schedule other activities on shore, and the main event was the air and sea rescue. So there's a lot that you can do with training exercises that are of great interest to the public and enjoyable.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you for the report. Okay, we're at the end of the meeting right now. We are on the commission and staff communications. Director Wiltshire, do we have any staff communications?
Just a reminder to the commission and the public, we will not have a June regular Harbor Commission meeting, so our next regular meeting in this room will be July 17th.
Yep, thanks for the reminder on that. Also for commission communications, just wanted to remind everybody that on April 29th, vessel insurance was discussed at the City Council Ordinance Committee. And it passed unanimously. It was sent to City Council on May 6th. It was approved as part of the consent calendar. So thanks for everybody, the commission and the Waterfront's great work on that, because it's nice to see that get over the finish line. And it'll be adopted, I guess, very shortly into the Muni Code.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Nathan, myself, staff, we're kind of starting essentially our marketing campaign now. So there's a bunch of things we want to do between now and January 1st to have some open houses for insurance providers at the waterfront, really kind of message and be there to support the transition. So we're getting that kind of campaign going right now. So you should kind of see that out in dock lines and kind of everywhere where we can message it.
That's great. Thanks. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention was, we've talked a lot about leases and upcoming leases. We discussed Echo Wireless, we discussed the Sailing Club today, Brophy Brothers. Just looking at the calendar that was sent out earlier and during our agenda setting meeting, I believe there is one lease that we will have on the agenda for, I think it's next meeting, but the Deep Sea Winery on the Wharf is due November 2025. So if you haven't been out there already, check it out before we eventually discuss it and vote on it. Other than that, I think all the others are going to be in 2026. Commissioner McCray, do you have a communication?
Yeah. I just want to mention that we have these great laminated outputs here on our dais, and thank you very much for that. Would you like to say anything about it?
We chatted about it a little bit last meeting, but it's a living document. So if there's anything else you all want to see on there or anything that's helpful, just let me know and we can revise it and reuse it. But it's really a tool for quick reference guide for you all.
Great, yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, and I appreciate making this for us. They're very helpful. Any other commission communications? All right, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.